Sadistic zombies is not the kind of phrase you expect from Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Krugman, who will be joining our program this evening. Professor Krugman is a former columnist for the New York Times whose invaluable writing now appears on Substack, where everyone should absolutely make an effort to read it and learn. Read it in Congress, Sadistic Zombies. And I will take the liberty during this hour to extend Professor Krugman's term to include the Trump ally who actually might be the most sadistic of all, Elon Musk, into the group of sadistic zombies now trying to control our governing, and in Elon Musk's case, trying to control this starving little girl in a refugee camp near South Sudan. Because Elon Musk believes that the girl you're looking at right there, Elon Musk believes that she has received too much free food from you. Too much free food from the United States of America. The United States of America has been producing more food than we can consume for more than a century now, and we have been sending food aid around the world for almost 200 years, as we did during the Irish famine in 1847. Former USAID official Dr. Atul Gawande is in Africa tonight, where he has seen what these sadistic zombies have done to that little girl and to people who need the HIV care that the United States has been supplying thanks to a program created by Republican President George W. Bush, but no more. Dr. Atul Gawande will join us later in this hour. The sadistic zombies are trying to take food aid away from people here in the United States who need food aid. They're trying to take that away from people in their budget bill. They are trying to take health care away from the people who earn the least amount of money in this country. They are trying to take health care away from Medicaid recipients. They are trying to give the most massive tax cut in history to Elon Musk and other billionaires, while still maintaining a much heavier tax burden on many taxpayers and on working couples, for example, who are very well paid, who can no longer deduct all of their state and local taxes on their federal tax returns because Donald Trump and the Republicans eliminated the possibility of deducting all of your state and local taxes from your federal tax returns, which we've all been able to do during our entire lives. And they did that during the first Trump presidency. And so Donald Trump actually increased significantly the tax burden on those taxpayers who ended up paying much more in their overall tax burden, even though their federal income tax rate was technically and slightly reduced. And those taxpayers are not happy. Those taxpayers live in Long Island. Some of them voted for Republican members of the House who are now betraying their promise to restore those taxpayers' ability to fully deduct their state and local taxes, like they did their entire lives until Donald Trump took from them and, in effect, raised their tax bills enormously. And that's one of the problems with the Republican tax bill, is how do you get those Republican House members in New York and California who lied about this in their campaign, saying they were going to fix this, how do you get them to vote for that bill and betray their voters? They promised they would fix that problem for them. The Republican House leadership is pushing forward to try to pass a bill for a president who has no idea what he is doing, a president who has no idea how the American economy and the global economy actually work. And finally, Donald Trump's overwhelming stupidity about all of that has finally broken through to American voters, with now 66% disapproving tonight of how Donald Trump is dealing with inflation and the cost of living, the reason so many voters voted for him. 63% disapprove of Donald Trump's tariffs, all of which, by the way, are illegal. And 58% disapprove of how Donald Trump is handling economic issues generally. The utterly fraudulent notion that the successful businessman Donald Trump was very good at the economic side of the presidency has evaporated. And it did evaporate even before Donald Trump reached the 100-day mark of this presidency. And now, with the most recent polling right now in May, even after Donald Trump has retreated from his most inane illegal tariffs, American voters are not quickly forgiving him for his tariff madness that crashed the stock market and scared them for very good reason. And the tariff madness that they will still suffer the next time they go into a Target or any other store. And so casting a vote for policies advocated by a popular president is one thing, but casting a vote on economic policy and a budget for a president who 2/3 of the country believes does not know what he is doing on economic policy is something that could only be done by people who are not thinking about what they are doing, people who are approaching the Republican budget process like what Paul Krugman calls zombies, sadistic zombies. And if they win, if the sadistic zombies win, they will lose. If the Republicans win the vote in the House of Representatives, they might then lose the vote in the United States Senate and throw the Republican Congress into utter chaos for the rest of the year. But if they win the vote on this budget bill in the House and then they win a vote in the Senate on the same budget bill, they will then have the booby prize of having passed the cruelest budget bill ever passed in American history and signed into law by the cruelest president. And they will take that cruelty with them into the next congressional election and see how it goes. See if those 66% who oppose what Donald Trump is doing now will thank them next November for helping visit that cruelty upon them or upon their neighbors or upon their grandmothers. Every voter in the next congressional election is going to know that Donald Trump lied when he said this.
We're cutting three things: waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not changing Medicaid, and we're not changing Medicare, and we're not changing Social Security.
Donald Trump is changing Medicaid, and the Republican Congress is helping Donald Trump change Medicaid. And as we learned in breaking news on this program 24 hours ago, Donald Trump is changing Medicare, cutting Medicare. And that is exactly what House Republicans are determined to do. They are going to vote to cut Medicare in this bill. Last night at this hour, the top Democrat on the House Budget Committee, Brendan Boyle, joined us and brought the breaking news directly from the Congressional Budget Office, who had just informed Congressman Boyle that the Republican budget bill would trigger cuts in Medicare, even though Medicare is not mentioned in the Republican budget bill. Congressman Boyle explained, as I interpreted at the time, that it was the interaction of the Medicaid cuts and the rest of the budget bill that would force, in effect, these cuts on Medicare. 3 hours later, Congressman Boyle was officially delivering that news to the House Rules Committee, which began a hearing in the middle of the night last night that is a necessary procedural step before bringing the budget bill to the floor of the House for a vote by the full House of Representatives. That hearing got underway at 1:20 a.m. And the top Democrat on that committee, the Rules Committee, Congressman Jim McGovern, began his participation in that hearing this way.
I've got a simple question. What the hell are Republicans so afraid of? What the hell are you so scared of that you guys are holding this hearing at 1 o'clock in the morning? It's a simple question that speaks to the heart of what's going on here, and one that I'm going to keep on asking. If Republicans are so proud of what is in this bill, then why are you trying to ram it through in the dead of night?
So after Congressman Brendan Boyle broke the news about the $500 billion cut to Medicare on this program last night, the biggest cut to Medicare in the history of the Medicare program, it was no surprise in that hearing room at 2:15 a.m. when Congressman Boyle testified to the committee.
As you know, statutory pay-go, which stands for pay-as-you-go, is a law that requires tax cuts and spending increases to be offset, meaning that they do not add to the deficit. If at the end of the year, congressional legislation collectively violates pay-go, those deficit effects trigger across-the-board cuts to programs like Medicare. Does this bill trigger statutory pay-go?
Yes, and it's not me saying it. It is the Congressional Budget Office confirming it as of a couple hours ago. And look, this is really the breaking news, because when the Budget Committee kicked off this process approximately 3 months ago, there was a commitment by President Trump that there would be no Medicare cuts in this piece of legislation. And indeed, over the last several months, there's been no discussion of Medicare at all. There has been of Medicaid, but not of Medicare. Well, here we are tonight because, as you explained, because of the size of the deficits, because of the pay-go or pay-as-you-go act, that would trigger sequestration of Medicare, and it would total over $500 billion. The official figure that CBO confirms is $535 billion in cuts to Medicare.
So the Rules Committee got that news, breaking news, as the congressman called it, formally presented to them about 4 hours after you got it here on this program from Congressman Boyle. And so Donald Trump is cutting Medicaid after promising not to, and he's cutting Medicare after promising not to. And while he's doing that, exactly at the same time he's doing that, he is taking a free plane from a Middle Eastern dictator who funds Hamas, while Donald Trump is cutting your Medicaid or your Medicare or your grandmother's Medicaid and Medicare. Medicaid is the single largest payer to nursing homes in America, and Donald Trump is cutting that program. Medicaid is the single largest provider of health care coverage for poor children and poor babies in America, and Donald Trump is cutting that funding. And while he's doing it, he's taking a free plane from a dictator who was trying to sell that plane, which is 13 years old and not good enough for the dictator, and couldn't find a buyer. And so instead, the dictator decided he'd rather have Donald Trump owe him. It helped that there were absolutely no buyers for that 13-year-old 747 on the used plane market these days. The listed value of that used plane is $400 million, which is much, much less than that same dictator has given to Hamas and gave to Hamas before Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. The Defense Department, in full participation in the international scheme to violate the Constitution and give Donald Trump a free plane, formally accepted the free 747 from the dictator of Qatar today. And now Donald Trump is the first president in history to try to have three Air Force Ones. We've always had two identical Air Force One aircraft ready to take the president anywhere in the world. To make sure an Air Force One is always ready, there have to be two planes so that there's a backup plane in case one plane has a problem. And now Donald Trump wants a third Air Force One at a massive cost to taxpayers. And that's the part where this scheme might just break down. The country has never needed a third Air Force One. The country has never paid a nickel to have a third Air Force One. Congress has never paid a nickel for a third Air Force One, and Congress will have to pay for that third Air Force One to be converted into a usable Air Force One, which is estimated to cost at least $1 billion. And now Donald Trump's going to pay $1 billion of your money to have a dictator's so-called flying palace converted into a usable Air Force One. But Congress controls that $1 billion. He's going to have to come to Congress for that money. It is very unlikely he's going to get that money, even from the sadistic zombies. Donald Trump wants to do all this while Boeing is building two new versions of Air Force One that were ordered while Donald Trump was president the first time. This is so perfectly Trumpian. This is Donald Trump's Marie Antoinette moment of obliviousness to the suffering he is causing, while Donald Antoinette dreams of the cake and McDonald's junk food he will have on the free plane that the dictator has given him, so that Donald Trump will be able to use that plane as his personal plane after his presidency, because that's the scheme. The scheme is for Donald Trump's Defense Department to deliver that plane as a gift to Donald Trump's presidential library when Donald Trump is leaving office, so that Donald Trump will have full custody of a former dictator's palatial 747 to fly wherever Donald Trump wants to for the rest of his life. That is the scheme, and that scheme is the work of sadistic zombies.